Hi, everybody. Welcome to the UX and Data Meetup. Today's topic is inspiring change with data visualization. We have the speaker, Steve Wexler, will be joining us. Today, our speaker is Steve Wexler. He is a data visualization pioneer and champion and the author of 2 books on data visualization. Most recently, The Big Picture, published 2 weeks ago from McGraw-Hill. His previous book, The Big Book of Dashboards, I personally used as a textbook when I taught at Columbia University. Steve has worked with Johnson & Johnson, Deloitte, ExxonMobil, and scores of other organizations to help them understand and visualize their data. He's a winner of numerous data visualization honors and awards, and Steve also serves on the advisory board of the Data Visualization Society. Today, Steve's topic is inspiring change with data visualization. So everyone, let's imagine a warm, big virtual applause for our guest, Steve Wexler. Steve, please take it away.
Thank you so much. I'll share my screen in a moment. By the way, this is officially my 10,000th Zoom meeting. I got a wonderful certificate from Conrad Zoom commemorating this. Very excited about that. I'm exaggerating. It hasn't been 10,000, but I appreciate how zoomed out people are and hope to make this ridiculously engaging as much as I'd like to be in person. And I know we can all taste how close we are to doing this in person. Let's make this a great virtual presentation. So the title you already know, Inspiring Change with Data Visualization. The subtitle is You May Not Change the World. And hold on, let me just get a few things queued up here. There we go. You may not change the world, but you can change your organization. Matt, thank you. And hosts for Lauren and Bill and Kim, who sadly is not feeling well, for the lovely introduction. I'm the founder, principal, sole employee of Data Revelations. I'm kind of known in the Tableau world, but everything I'm talking about now in both books are totally tool agnostic. So I was Tableau's inaugural Iron Biz champion. Was a really long time ago, and I'm a Tableau Zen Master Hall of Famer. Yes, that is an actual thing. I didn't just put it on my business card. But within data visualization, the thing I'm most proud of, or the 2 things I'm most proud of, is one, I was one of the 3 authors on the Big Book of Dashboards, and that's geared towards the practitioner. And then I have a new book, which is way more geared towards the newbie, but really the consumer, the people that need to consume and understand charts and dashboards, but may not have a data visualization literacy or graphicacy, and don't yet appreciate everything it is that the data visualization specialist and practitioner brings to the table. And I'm going to be sharing some stuff in the big picture that I think will be useful for both the person who's just going to be consuming these things, but also the practitioner. I've started showing this next slide in virtually every presentation and every workshop that I give. And that is, you are encouraged to disagree with me. Good things happen when we discuss and debate these things. And yeah, it's a little difficult to disagree with me given this forum that we're in a webinar, but in the chat and in the Q&A and after the fact, if I've said something that doesn't resonate with you, or you think you have a better example or a contrary example, I'd love to hear about it. So you are encouraged to disagree with me. All right. I'm wondering how many people here have seen this chart. Charles Minard's attempt to visualize Napoleon's doomed campaign to conquer Russia between 1812 and 1813. And I can't tell you how many webinars, how many workshops, how many books discuss this particular chart. And I'm not going to get into how to decode it if you haven't seen it before, but it's held up as like the Mona Lisa of all data visualizations. And why? Because of this guy, Edward Tufte, in his 1983 work, The Visual Display of Quantitative Information, where he said, this may be the best statistical graph ever drawn. So this is covered in a lot of books, and I've got to confess, even though I have a love-hate relationship with this particular chart, I cover it in my book just because I think I cover it way differently than the way anybody else covers it. But this is held up as, look at this amazing thing. And it is pretty amazing. There's another chart that kind of fits within this, canon of things that are placed on the pedestal of charts that change the world. I don't know if that one changed the world, but it is held up as maybe the best statistical chart ever drawn. Here's a chart that changed the British healthcare system. I'm wondering how many of you have seen this? Boy, it's making the rounds within the data visualization community these days. It's crazy. It's Florence Nightingale's Rose chart, as she actually called it a wedge chart, showing the effect of changing sanitary conditions at the Scutari Hospital in Turkey during the Crimean War. This chart, in fact, did change the British healthcare system. And I'm not going to get into read it, but it's probably not seen many things like this. Now, let me chime in on behalf of two colleagues that I admire greatly, what they have to say about this particular chart. So this comes from R.J. Andrews, who wrote the wonderful book Info We Trust, and is doing a 3-volume work of some data visual pioneers. And he says, critics suggest that Nightingale's mortality data is better shown in something more straightforward like a bar chart. He's thinking of me. I'm one of those critics. But this is not true. Florence Nightingale made lots of bar charts. No one cares about them. Her roses gripped 1858 readers, and they still hold our attention today. And if you're thinking, well, wait a second, Florence Nightingale, wasn't she the founder of modern nursing? Yes, she was, but she also was a polymath and a brilliant statistician and orchestrated some incredible charts. In any case, RJ is saying, no one cares about bar charts. Okay, here's something from Alberto Cairo, absolutely one of my heroes, author of The Functional Art, The Truthful Art, and one of my favorite more recent books, How Charts Lie. I believe Nightingale's goal wasn't just to inform, but also to persuade with an intriguing, unusual, beautiful picture. A bar graph conveys the same message effectively, but it may not be as attractive to the eye. So you've got 3 pundits holding up these charts. Here's the Mona Lisa, here's the David. And you're relatively new to this field and you're attending a seminar, a workshop, reading their books, and you're probably thinking, I guess I should be making charts like these, right? And I want to say, no, you shouldn't be making charts like these. But in my head, I kind of hear the comedian Louis Black, no, you shouldn't be making charts like these, really spitting nails about this. Always be thinking about the following 3 things, important. Who is your audience and what is it that you're trying to tell them? What's the message? If you read about Menard, if you read about Nightingale, they both knew their audiences well, who they were writing for. There's a wonderful book by Sandra Rengren called The Menard System, which has all of Menard's known charts in them. Now, he was a civil engineer. He wasn't a data visualization practitioner, but he used data visualization to help understand the data that he had to be a better civil engineer. And when you read Sandra Rengren's book, the expectation was that this was a sophisticated audience sitting at a drawing table with a ruler in hand. A ruler in hand. When was the last time you saw someone look at one of your dashboards or a data visualization with a ruler in hand so you could compare the size of the size legend with the actual graph? Think about showing the Florence Nightingale wedge chart to some busy CEO and that person saying, wow, this looks interesting. Let me get my protractor. That's not going to happen. So my problem with these charts is they're so disconnected from real world practice. And the people showing these things haven't effectively connected the dots. And I see there is a need for, well, can you show me stuff from the modern world that changed the way people operated and the way people looked at this stuff? So I got a lot of third parties to submit examples of some real world inspiration. And I'm going to start with understanding racial and ethnic disparities. An integrated healthcare organization needed to highlight the organization's racial and ethnic diversity, or in fact, the lack thereof. Their Diversity and Inclusion Executive Council built a visualization to show imbalances between the organization's workforce and the community it served. The overarching goal was to make sure those coming to the healthcare organization felt represented in both physician and leadership positions. So let me show you the before example, which didn't do the trick. A bunch of numbers, some arrows pointing down, and some green indicating everything's honky-dory. Well, the community is 60% composed of 60% white people, and the workforce is 69%. And they say that reflects the community. Well, it's actually not a reflection of the community. It's an over represented in the community. And here the Hispanics represent 13%, but in leadership and physician appearances, only 5%. And they're indicating, oh, well, this is a problem. Problem with this is it's binary. You don't see by how much. So you're looking at a table full of numbers. The reflects community, I would say, is inaccurate. And the arrow pointing down was pointing down a little. Is it pointing down a lot? And this is instead what they proposed, and it gave everybody who was trying to grasp this a much better understanding of what was happening. So just quickly to look at this is we can see that their whites are overrepresented, and you can see by 115% if you want to have a true reflection of the community, while Hispanics are tremendously underrepresented. Now, no one is saying, hey, we're just going to fire a whole bunch of people and hire a whole bunch of other people. It's more an understanding of where they are and what their goals are, so that the organization is a good reflection of the community that it serves. And the impact really helped the organization identify where they need to focus, how near or far they were, closing the gaps in racial and ethnic representation, and the exact numbers to achieve that. Tracking e-commerce. This is one of my favorite examples because the dashboard created deals with so many real-world problems in a compact space. Simulp is a French manufacturer that designs technical outdoor clothing. The e-commerce division of the company needed a way to monitor on a daily basis click-to-purchase activity for every product it offers via its website. Most important measures were conversion rate and how much they spent. This is the before example. It's nicely formatted, and someone has a nice sense of design. But you really can't tell anything from it. Can you see where the big spends are and the big conversions are? No, it's just nicely formatted table with a colorful map in the bottom right corner. Here's what they came up with instead, and they, meaning Dorian Banotto, who's out of Romania, does wickedly good work, one of my favorite practitioners in the field. And let's focus on the top part of the chart. And I'm just going to show you how to decode this thing, because he had to show executive management how to decode it. Probably took him 2 minutes, right? Here are the key measures. Your conversion rate is 4.52%. And that's what the greenish teal color means. The pink is how many conversions you had, 172. And you had a total of 3,804 sessions. That's what the gray is. Teal, pink, gray. Got it? Good. Here's how many sessions you had. And here's how many conversions, resulting in a conversion rate of 3.4%. Now look at that number 5 for a minute. Here, I'll highlight it because I have the cool clicker. And compare that with this. It's almost the same amount, the actual number of conversions, but the percentage is much higher here because there were far fewer engagements. There were far fewer sessions. So super easy read. Really good sense of it, and the cost per click, really problematic. And here's the bottom part of the chart. Now, he even includes how to read the chart, and it's brilliantly done, but realize once the team that needs to look at it knows how to read it, they probably don't even need this piece that says unique purchases divided by detailed views. Well, that's the conversion rate. And I love this chart. It's a bar within bar within bar. The gray, how many people looked? The white, how many people added to the cart? And the black that's in there, how many people actually purchased? And then this part is the, hey, how much are we spending on this thing? or how many views are we getting versus the spend of it. And the little red dot that's here, boy, you're spending a lot of money on something that's not returning a big return on investment. 1.7% are being so this report has completely changed the way the company runs its e-commerce business. The CEO, the head of operations, the head of marketing, they review it every morning. And did they know instantly how to read it? No, some of those charts were a little unexpected. It took 2 minutes to get them to read it, and now they rely on it completely. And it has changed the way the company runs its business. A simple dashboard and simple data visualization. By the way, there's some brilliant stuff in here. And I want to discuss this. In my dashboard design workshops, I'll ask people, how would you visualize this? North reached 95% of goal, South 105% of goal, East only 65% of goal, West crushed it, 135% of goal. And discuss it for a bit and say, well, here's a pretty cool way to show it, a bar chart with a reference line. But pretty quickly people go, well, did they all have the same goals? Were they all trying to make $10 million? Here the goal is 100,000, and here the goal is 3 million. So do I want to show the actuals in this case? Well, Dorian is doing both here. Here's the actual, and here's the percent of total, done a really compact space. So I've just got a hats off to something that just shows up all the time within a business context. All right, next up is an example from Cole Nussbaumer-Knaflic. You may know her from writing the brilliant book, Storytelling with Data, and she runs a website, Storytelling with Data. And this is a real study, a real story, but the name of the firm and the name of the particular pharmaceutical has been changed. So a pharmaceutical company, Universa, concluded a marketing study comparing their recently FDA-approved anti-anxiety drug, its made-up name, Mercalax, to their primary competitors. The study included patient participants who had taken both Mercalax and the competitor product for a set period of time. The results showed a big preference for Mercalax versus the competition. Well, here's the slide they first came up with. There was lots of confusion. People didn't know what was going on in it. And actually, people came away with the wrong conclusion. They thought that people preferred the competitor. By the way, the right chart is in there. It's just really buried. There's just so much other stuff going on. And Cole started by defining the audience and then realized in meeting with the team, meeting with the stakeholders, said, well, it wasn't an audience. There were actually two clear audiences. One audience was for a live presentation over lunch, kind of competing with people eating their lunch. And it's some brilliant psychiatrist presenting to other psychiatrists. The other was a quick sales call. Busy physician only got 2 minutes. And they came up with two markedly different ways of showing this. But let's look at the first one, which has this unusual chart. I don't think in my entire career I've ever made a waffle chart like this. But it was important because there'd be someone presenting it. And this person knew the audience and how they would eat this up. So they went through a slow reveal, a slow seduction. Consider a square. Imagine the square represents a patient in a study. There were 99 patients in their study. You think, you couldn't get one more to have an even 100? Apparently not. 10 people didn't have a preference. 70 people preferred Mercalax. 19 people preferred the competitor. Of the people that preferred Mercalax, 34 cited a lack of mood swings, 29 people cited better anxiety relief, and 7 people said their preference was due to other reasons, resulting in this slide, which, by the way, I don't think I'd ever just put in front of somebody. It was that slow reveal that worked. Now, for the physicians and the sales representative that's rushing in and 2-minute presentation, one slide. Hey, 70% preferred us, 19% preferred them. I might have done that with a bar chart. And here's why they preferred us versus them. Boom. The impact was immediately noticed. Easier time helping the audience understand the study, and ultimately, they sold more products. Now, that weird waffle chart, and Andy Cotgreave, he's one of my fellow authors on the Big Book of Dashboards. This is Andy Cotgreave and Cotgreave's Law. The longer an innovative visualization exists, the probability someone says it should have been a line or bar chart approaches 1. And that's the first thing I did, is I said, this should be a bar chart. And so I took the same data and said, why not show it this way? Oh, if you want to try to show that these are 70 individual people, do it as a unit chart. If you want to try to show, oh, well, let me make them look people-y, use an isotype of some sort and handle it that way. And Cole said, we tried all those things. But just knowing the audience, we went with not the necessarily the chart that makes for an easy and accurate comparison. By the way, these unit charts can be really effective. This is one of my favorite data visualization practitioners, Lindsay Poulter, showing how few Black CEOs there are in the 2020 Fortune 500 list. And do I really need to have a bar that's 495 wide versus a bar that's 5? Or just something, do I need to make an exact comparison here? Probably not. It's a really telling story. Speaking of really telling stories where maybe you don't need a bar chart, a colleague and friend of mine, Greg Lewandowski, was working with a firm, and they wanted to get, people were asking for, hey, who are the top 10 partners we have, the top 25, the top 50? And he said, why are you asking for 10, 25, 50? Why the top 10? And I said, I don't know. That seems like a good number. Well, he did an analysis of his data, and he was shocked to discover something. They had 25,000 partners. 25,000. 9 of the partners were responsible for 25% of their sales. Less than 1% of their partners were responsible for 75% of their sales. Think about that. This is not Pareto stuff where 20% of your clients are responsible for 80% of your sales, which when he told me about this, I was sure of that. So he wanted to create a visualization that would have an emotional impact. So he started with this. Imagine each dot is a partner. There are 25,000 dots. 25% of our income is coming from those. 75% of our income is coming from those. Now, you're saying, wait, Steve, are you saying you should use packed bubbles? Man, I am not a fan of packed bubbles and multi-size packed bubbles. So if you were to ask me, how many times out of 100 should I use a bar or a line chart for something eye-catching? I'd probably say 90 times out of 100. Use the bar or line chart. In this case, the thing worked because it wasn't important to see, is this 1,942 times as big or only 1,716 times as big? It worked fine to present it that way, to present it as something with more emotional. It wasn't important that the audience be able to make an accurate comparison. And the impact on it, there was, shock and awe that Greg calls this the jawbreaker visualization, because it was the sound of everybody's jaws dropping and hitting the table when they really understood their partnership data. Let me move to a really common thing, KPI charts. Can you glean the insights you need from your KPI dashboard? This is the before example. Everything looks great except that one place, right? Oh, everything's green except this one place that's in red. Mark Regera, who is a senior BI product specialist and innovator at Microsoft, says, beware of watermelons. What's a watermelon? It's green on the outside, but it's red on the inside. So where you say, well, I see something that's red. The item in red Did we miss it by a lot or just a little? And that thing in red, did it just crop up this week, this month, or has it been going on for a while? And all those wonderful green KPIs, did we crush our goals by a lot, or are there some that just squeak through? And most importantly, while the organization may be doing well overall, are there regions, countries, cities, individual properties that were gross underperformers? And here's the after version. And it's really, some great work here in the compact space with tons of KPIs. JLL is a massive property management organization. I think 90,000 employees worldwide, something like that. In any case, I'm just going to show the top of the dashboard. And what we're showing here is that first flag, there's 181 out of 637 non-compliant metrics. And of the 187 countries that they operate in, 36 have some issues coming up. Well, let's look at the real meat of this thing. This is their goal for metrics 16 and 17. And we can see, hey, they're ahead of their goal. Here's the goal for whatever measures 18, 19, 20, and 21 is. And they're ahead of their goal. Well done. Here's the goal for measure 22, 23, and 24. It's looked like they should be at 100%. See what the goal is, 100% over here, but they're below goal. And if I look over here, well, I can see, hey, this thing is it's not just underneath. I can see how far underneath. How far is the dot from the goal? And if I'm curious, wait, has that been going on for a long time? Well, no, it hasn't. The first 3 months that we were tracking, we were fine. It then dipped down a little. It then dipped down a lot, and then it came up. And what's this dot over here? Where everything seems to be fine right here, right? Blue dot, but I'm seeing this orange dot. It means overall you're doing well. But if you drill down, you'll see there are some pockets where there's a problem with it. And then you can drill down on that and get to it. Overall, you may be doing well, but you have some underperformers, and this will help you find it. And the impact, well, it's an embodiment of what a good dashboard, a good data visualization is about, finding insights that otherwise would have been hidden and time to insight. Here we see not only that there are shortcomings, but a few clicks will take us exactly where the shortcomings are. What used to take hours now takes minutes. All right, how do I get from Raleigh-Durham to Seattle? An airline tracking revenue from flight segments. A friend and colleague, Nelson Davis, was tasked with looking at these individual flight segments. And here's what he had. They had like 5 11 by 17 spreadsheets that they put on this big table and try to figure stuff out. They said, we want you to create a compact dashboard showing, and the first thing he said was, well, this is just a table full of numbers. Why not show this stuff on a map? And they said, we tried making a map. Please don't try making a map. Well, that's because the map they made was just a map that just had, where these various cities were located. Everyone knew where Dallas, Fort Worth, and Minneapolis, St. Paul, and Cincinnati were. They hadn't figured out what to do with the map. So Nelson created this. He didn't create that. That's the flow map Charles Menard created. He created this, and you can go, well, what's the big deal? No one really got by this visual impact just how massive the revenue from Atlanta to Seattle was versus all the other segments. That the numbers were there, but just seeing the thickness of that line and that the revenue they're generating is greater than all the others combined. By the way, I probably would have done this with a bar chart, or heaven forbid a pie chart showing Atlantis to Seattle is more than 50% of everything else. But this did the trick to get them out of their complacency and realize, oh my gosh, we need something that will help us see where the biggest segments are. They rewarded Nelson by saying, hey, do a whole lot more of these things, not just Raleigh Durham, but all these other things. Oh, the possibilities when you're a possibilist. What's a possibilist? This is one of mine and many others' heroes within the data visualization world. Hans Rosling, and sadly he died in 2017, was a Swedish professor of global health who, using data, stunning visualizations, and homespun charm, changed the way people understood the world. I first became aware of his work when a friend showed me Rosling's TED Talk from 2006. If you've not seen it, look up Hans Rosling TED 2006. That's worth the price of admission today. You know, I would say if you get nothing else out of this, don't buy any of my books or whatever. Watch that. It's one of the most viewed TED Talks ever. In his book, Factfulness, which is another thing you should read, it will make you feel a lot better about the world, especially coming off of, maybe the craziest and most problematic year I can recall in my lifetime. Rosling describes himself as a possibilist. People often call me an optimist. This is him writing, because I show them enormous progress they didn't know about. That makes me angry. I'm not an optimist. That makes me sound naive. I'm a very serious possibilist. That's something I made up. It means someone who neither hopes without reason nor fears without reason, someone who constantly resists the overdramatic worldview. As a possibilist, I see all the progress, and it fills me with conviction and hope that further progress is possible. This is not optimistic. It is having a clear and reasonable idea about how things are. It is having a worldview that is constructive and useful. And I want to show you, some examples of people who are looking at business as usual and saying, I think we can do a little bit better. And reimagining the consolidated income statement. Here's the P&L statement, profit and loss statement for Alphabet Inc. Alphabet Inc., that is the parent company of Google. And a friend and colleague, Klaus Schulte, who is a brilliant data visualization specialist, but he's also a professor of accounting and finance in Munster, Germany. This stuff annoys him. He can read this better and faster than anyone in this quote unquote room right now. But he's saying there's so much more that we could do if we visualize this. And people not as well steeped as he are could get a good sense of where's all the money coming in from? Where's all the money going out of? And he came up with this really brilliant way to look at it and get a sense of where the revenue is coming from, where the expense is going out, and so forth. Stunning piece of work. Lab tests. These things are impossible to decipher. My cholesterol, LDL and HDL, is it good? Is it bad? I don't quite understand this. Am I in a danger zone? Where should I be? Another friend and colleague, and now the executive director of the Data Visualization Society. This comes from Amanda McCulloch. Not this. I'll show you what she came up with. After her father had a second battle against kidney cancer, McCulloch decided she should submit to a genetic test and discovered that she, like her father, had Lynch syndrome and put her at greater risk of several different types of cancers. The lab results she received were presented in a table like this. Now, she can read this and make sense of it. By the way, she totally fired her physician, who just sent these things over without saying, we should schedule time to discuss this and what it means. Here's how she visualized it, which was for these various different cancers. And she had what they were, and she'd have value axes along the bottom. And then here's her risk for these things, which is quite a bit more pronounced. If you're wondering, why does her risk go from so low to so high? She has a pretty rare genetic disorder. So there aren't that many people in the database from whom to poll. So they're putting this range in there. But this is a much better way to show lab results. Here's the general population. Here's the range you want to be in. Here's where you are. And going a little further with this, reimagining patient health histories. I don't know if any of you have had chronic or difficult health conditions, or if you have a family member who deals with this, but it can be overwhelming for people with rare, mysterious, or complicated health issues to relate their histories to doctors. At appointments, people feel pressured to remember everything that happened and tell their story in the right order. The details are often trapped in medical records, especially when visiting a new doctor. It's challenging to tell your whole life story. It's also exhausting. With each new doctor, the patient has to start from scratch, and the details get lost in translation. And many patients feel they're not being heard or taken seriously, or that it's all in their head. Katie McCurdy, I'm going to show you her work in a minute because it's wonderful. She's the founder of Pictal Health, authors a health history visualization service to help patients to organize and visualize their health story so that they can understand what happened, communicate better, and tell their stories with confidence. And here is a patient visualization. So here are the symptoms and indicating how pronounced and how much pain there is. Here were the different diagnoses. This is just brilliant in a compact space. Timeline of when the person was born, current year, the difficulties they've dealt with, the diagnoses, various life events, and the various treatments that they've been on. And I can tell you, physicians have responded wonderfully to this. They just go, oh my gosh, I now have such a better sense of what's happening with you. And I can speak from experience. This has made a really big difference. I want to discuss a little bit of my story with data visualization and an incredible experience I had. But I'm going to have to go back a little further for a moment. Hold on a second. I'm just looking for when I share webinar format. Just need to make one little adjustment on something. Sorry about that. There we go. So look, I didn't come into this planning to be involved with data visualization. If you look at my about page, you discover, oh my God, this guy didn't study math, didn't study statistics, didn't study computer technology, studied music, and did this full time. And let me set you up for a cool thing that happened with me. So for 20 years, I didn't do this stuff at all. And then 2004, 2005, I started getting interested in it. What got me interested in it again is a friend came over to my house and he brought this DVD. You remember DVDs? Going to Blockbuster? DVD of a documentary called Standing in the Shadows of Motown. It was about the Funk Brothers, the band, the backup band that played on all the Motown hits. They played on more Motown, more number one hits than the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, and Elvis Presley combined. I fell in love with this stuff, and in particular, the bass playing of this guy, James Jamerson. Probably have never heard of him unless you're into this stuff, or maybe you've been lucky enough to see that documentary. But Marvin Gaye, Stevie Wonder, Four Tops, Gladys Knight, Pips, Smokey Robinson, and the Miracles, outstanding. In any case, let me move ahead. So I really study this stuff. I'm into it, and get hired to play with a very good R&B band. And I am nervous. This is the first time I'm playing this stuff. Playing at, some nice club with a big dance floor. Play the first set, it goes great. Second set begins, band leader calls the tune My Girl. My Girl starts with just the bass. And I'm going to play you a little bit of it. Just starts with me. I'm starting the second set. All right, I'd love to play a little more of that, but I don't think I'm allowed to. In any case, I played all of 2 bars. Boot doo doo, boot doo doo. People went nuts. They recognized the tune. The dance floor was packed in seconds, and my reaction to this was, I'm looking at my bass. I'm looking at the other people in the band. I literally moved people. And I said, oh my God, I want to do this again and again and again. It was so exciting to have that type of communal experience, see the reaction to something I had done. Now let me fast forward It's the year 2014. Let me give you the setup to this. I'm working with a major healthcare company. They have data on thousands of different companies and millions of employees and their families. They want to save costs and save lives through compliance. Compliance meaning people are taking the drugs when they should. They're minding their diet, they're exercising, they're doing the stuff to be healthy, and particularly with the taking of medications. How can we get buy-in? And they would meet with a company and say, look, you have a problem in your organization. You need to do something about it. And they might show a slide like this: incidence of diabetes. The incidence of diabetes within your organization is 18.5%, but the average every place else is 4.9%. And it didn't change people's behavior. It didn't get them to go, there's really a big problem here. I mean, it's a nice looking slide. So instead, we work something like this. Here's the incident. Here are 790 different organizations. Each organization is represented by a dot. Okay? Dots down here, low incidence of diabetes. Dots up here, really high. Maybe it's hard to see that there are 790 dots. Let's jitter them left and right, just so that you can see. And it's easier to see, there's way more dots here than there are up here. Here's a demarcation point for the worst 1%. Now, let's show you where your company is. That's your dot. You don't want to be up here. The impact was palpable. The people who are going to be trying to get people to buy into the compliance were so excited. They finally had something that would resonate, get people to really understand, here's you, here's everybody else, and get this commitment to, how do we get our dot out of that bad location? And so 3 months from now, 6 months from now, we're doing a lot better. Well, the reaction I had to this, creating this data visualization that so moved people, and the impact was, I kind of figuratively moved people. With the playing bass, I literally moved people. I wanted to do this again and again and again. I wanted to create data visualizations that would change the way people behave, the way people looked at their data, that changed their organization. So that was my story. What's your story going to be within all of this if you choose this type of path? And important, I'm going to say, always be thinking, who is your audience? What's the message? And it's taken me 15 years to distill what I do down to a single sentence, but provide the greatest degree of understanding with the least amount of effort. Least amount of effort for your audience. You may have to work really hard, but as I've shown with this, maybe 7 or 8 examples, you may not change the world, Florence Nightingale, or the visualizations that have changed the world, the Brooks slave ship, the diagram of that propelled the abolitionist movement in England. You may not change the world, but you absolutely can change your organization. And it is absolutely intoxicating when that happens, and you're going to want it to happen again and again and again. Here's where you can continue the discussion. Tell me I'm full of crap, whatever, send me an email. I disagree with this. And the new book is called The Big Picture, How to Use Data Visualization to Make Better Decisions Faster. And that's where you should go, bigpic.me. You can download a free sample of it. And if you decide, I like this, you can buy it from Amazon or your local bookseller.
Excellent. Thank you, Steve. We have a bit of time for some Q&A. Steve, our first question is from Patricia E. And Patricia asks, what are your preferred graphs for quality control?
Patricia, I'd have to see, what is the data you're keeping track of? What are you measures that are important to you and your audience? I see control, the word control, and I'm going, well, would a control graph where we're looking at significant changes up or down over time? So without knowing what are the things that are important to the organization, I'd be reluctant to go, oh, you need a such and such chart. Now, there may be other people here, and I see some of my friends here, like Jacob Wasufka, who does ridiculously good work. He may have something off his fingers and make a suggestion of what to do. But without knowing a little more about the data and the audience, I'd be reluctant to go, oh, you need a reverse Byluvian chord diagram with a 3/4 twist. I'd have to see what you have in mind.
Barring that would be, otherwise it would be a bar chart, I would assume.
Yeah, exactly. If that doesn't work, a bar. Thank you. Yeah, a bar chart. Perfect.
Our next question comes from Claudia. Do you have any thoughts or recommendations regarding visualization of qualitative data?
Well, so you do know that Likert scale data, and it is pronounced Likert, even though it's Likert. It's Likert, and I'll get into a fist fight with you. It's not Likert. That was this, Rensis Likert's brilliant idea of, oh, how do we take qualitative notions and try to put a quantitative measure? I agree strongly, make that a 5. I disagree strongly, make that a 1. But if it's just text type of stuff, and those of you know my little subspecialty is visualizing survey data, I actually stay away from that. The mining that's involved to get the sentiment analysis and the things that are involved with that and the computational linguistics, you've got to get that happening first, and then you can visualize it. So I'm kind of punting on this one. You need to find something that can make sense of these free text responses and knows how to disambiguate and come up with what the sentiment is when someone says they're unhappy, they're morose, they're blue, they're sad, and realize that's all the same thing. Or you do the Likert approach and just say, on a scale of 1 through 5, indicate how satisfied you are, how unhappy you are, etc.
Next question is anonymous. How do you get staff on board to collect data about your own organization?
So I probably hit people, ask the HR specialist, how do you do this? How do you get people to participate in an employee survey, feel that they are, not going to be penalized for speaking out against a manager or somebody and things like that. And there's a real art to this. So SHRM, Institute for Corporate Productivity, there's at least one other organization that really specializes in this type of thing, with a sense of, here's how you can gauge what's happening, the health of your employees, and do it properly.
All right. And here's a question from Curran, who asks, what's a more persuasive non-bar chart way of showing how your redesign compares with old design? So there's, and cites several metrics: task completion, number of errors made, satisfaction rates, etc.
So this is the big overarching question that you're trying to get buy-in when your stakeholders are asking you to create a chart or dashboard, and you just know there's a better way to show this, and it's driving you nuts. And the wrong way to get buy-in is say, well, I'm the expert, we should do what I say. A better way is, well, what are the questions we're trying to answer with this thing, and which ones allows us to do this faster? And maybe we get a few people in to look at the 3 different versions we have and say, ask them 4 or 5 questions and see how long it takes, and do they get them wrong or do they get them right, which is kind of exactly what Cleveland and McGill did in 1983. And they discovered bar charts or dots, positioning of dots from a common baseline resulted in the greatest degree of accuracy. So I would do the same thing, and before you've redesigned it, I would test these things with stakeholders and ask them, which is clear, which is helping you the most. I don't know if you need to get down to let's create this. Let's ask them to answer questions and time how long it takes versus a more informal, do you understand this thing? If I were to say, how much, how far away are we from our goal? Can you figure that out by looking at this? And if they say, yeah, it's pretty clear. I can see this region is really close to the goal, but this region's really far away. And you've probably succeeded.
I have one other thing to add on top of that. I'd love to get your thoughts on. So I think this particular question has a lot to do with usability testing in particular. See the task completion time, number of errors, and there's a lot of stuff out there. Jacob Nielsen actually has a wonderful data visualization that shows number of significant errors found per block of participants, and it shows that after it's a line chart, and after 5 participants, you see a dramatic drop off in the number of usability errors that you can find. And I've used that chart as a precursor many times when talking about usability tests, and I show that to people that look, you can get very significant results with this few as 5 test participants. That's one of the biggest sort of jumps that or cognitive jumps I've seen that people need to make, that you can get good results with low sample rates.
I'm in serious agreement with that, by the way, and it's usually look, the better you all get at this, the harder it is to see stuff with fresh eyes, and the stuff that's easy for you to read may be hard for your stakeholders, and the stuff that you take for granted. So the better you are at this, the more that you need to have people who aren't as good as you looking at this stuff. And usually it's small things that you can do. And I agree. I do not have the same formal study, Matt, you've done with it or that Nielsen has done with it, but it's usually just a handful of people to help you get this thing right.
I think we have time for one more question tonight. And this is coming from Robbie. And Robbie says, thank you so much for the talk. Can't wait to order the new book.
We love you, Robbie.
And it's already available to order, is it not? Steve?
I'm sorry?
It's already available to order, is it not?
It is, yes. I don't mean to brag, but it is #1 on Amazon for books by bass players from Briarcliff. It's absolutely fantastic. I intend to dominate that category for the whole year.
But I'll go into the rest of his question, which is, what are some of your favorite complex dashboards which answer the question, how is my brand doing overall? How is my brand doing, or the overall health of my system? Thinking about the lines of total sales, baskets filled, basket failures, abandoned baskets, etc. So it's like a big picture of the company, I think, is what he's looking at.
Well, there are two different things. How is our company doing compared to other companies? And you kind of saw something with the diabetes example. Here's our company, here's the other 790, or, you probably don't compete with 790 companies, but you would have something which is, gee, I'd like to get a sense of customer satisfaction amongst these, 18 different brands, and where are we compared to others? And then the other, issue of, how are sales, profit, expenses, customer whatever are the measures that you're dealing with, that's covered to some degree in the big picture, but that's kind of the whole idea behind the big book of dashboards, which is we have just a whole bunch of different scenarios. Gee, if you're tasked with this, if your company has this kind of data, here is what we think is a good way to present that data. And you may not find an exact match for your company and what you're doing, but you'll probably find something which will help give you ideas of ways to present the data. But I couldn't say whether the big book of dashboards, the big picture, or one of dozens of other wonderful books out there would be the best of answering that particular question. But you'll probably find in one of them some inspiration.
Great. And big book of dashboards is an excellent book. Like I mentioned, I chose it as our textbook. It was a really good book.
Thank you, Matt.
Well, pleasure, Steve. Well, thank you for coming here, Steve. It's been wonderful having you here again. I want to say thank you to, of course, other people who helped make this happen. So that's Bill and Lauren and Kim. We hope you're feeling better. And of course, everybody else who comes in. We love doing the Q&A. We love that you come here and that you care. This is wonderful. We hope to see you again in person sometime very soon. We love that we're worldwide. Maybe we'll continue that too. Folks, we're going to probably take a pause for about a month or so, but we'll see you again real soon. Steve, again, thank you again. And to everybody, have a great night. Enjoy.
Recording stopped.
Bye-bye.